Like if they make a canoe. Shkalneek. Yechayati.
يكاي وصلت قلنا يدتقايو صارت هو يكاي يشكلنيك ليخي قسكو إيش وصل قلت لي تقاق إن أخشكو أقا قاقختو نيك ووچين يكاي
It was Kugea shkalneek usatini.
أختو وسكو خوستيني قلت شيش تلين التكتيوان
I do first sentence.
أدوسا كقوتو أدوسا كقوتو ياتا
Adusa kwatu yat
وقيقو أدوسا كقوتيو
Adut sakwatiw. Yuqiq away and the page.
أيوة
Guk kash. I'll read.
All right, sorry. Hold on 1 second.
شتى يسكوكي يوهان شتى وش إشتى
Wait a minute.
أيوة شتى
All right, couldn't cheese yet. We're having a moment out in the living room with our kids. I take it we're reading it. So if you hear yelling or crying, it's either me or them. So.
أيوة حقستي.
All right. Aya kagach tusnik yagi.
Okay. Sheesh.
We yada katskoot du kliku nehi de nagoch.
Nak.
Du kliku kawawus yada katskoot. Nasa yeda tune yayagi.
Wooch pegachtus yayagi. Yayasa kawe lil.
Anyone else want to read this one? Who hasn't got a chance to read yet?
I will. Kuduwaich away you at Kwatik.
Kan has akaliku kayaratsku iluk dijinsu.
Hey. Good sheesh. How was that? Tell me about the process. How'd it go? We gotta make about 10 more sentences, I guess.
Seems like so long ago. How did we start this?
Oh! Translation's no joke.
Well, I just said that is one of my favorite ways to start a story is like this, or at least that I've read and seen.
Okay.
And so that was a good place to start.
Tla'ustla told me something her grandparent or one of her uncles did. He got all the kids around. He's like, Haku shkalneek ide shkalneek klein. Hatia, qaiki akhta. Come around. I'm gonna tell you all this story. It's a big story. Come here, sit down. So all the kids run over and sit down. They're all excited. And he says, so that was it. And they all got mad. And the first time I did it with my kids, I did the exact same thing. Ooh, they got mad at me. I was just laughing so hard. Okay, good stuff. This is a good story. It's off to a great start. Who's taking the next sentence? Let's just keep it going. And it can go anywhere. It don't matter.
Chance, did we get yours? Did you put one in the chat?
Yeah, I was thinking we could switch it to right after there was a feast being held and the boys' grandparents would have it there. So and then they chop wood.
Wutuliyéx away you at kuatik. Kaya de katsku kish to jinsu. Gun hus a kalki. Good.
Jin, I done properly, if you can.
Sheikh and so.
I can't.
Sheikh, Jin, so. Should I have a high tone? Yuck, what's that? What's gonna happen? And we have 2 other teachers signed on with us. So you other teachers, you just jump in anytime. Who didn't go? And you could say it in English and we'll work on it together. So it's not like you're expected to produce like this super polished Tlingit sentence. We're just having fun.
What about like Isha Nachat for the little boy chopping wood?
Jin de huetlaki.
Gan kaututlichut itach. Gan kaututlichut. Like gan kaututlichut I jitachawe jutachwetl.
Ayanach yakushusike. Ituwak sagwini. Gun kallachut jiyid.
Yeah.
Gun kallachut ich. Jin de huetl.
Yeah, okay. Kalchwan ishwan qanins qanakawanik ya akhijni ajidakho khatwadakhwat.
Achidye dishi kachoshidi.
Gan kaudutihuti ajidach judakhwat. Okay. So what yisaku wudakhwat. And I haven't done it this semester. I've done really well, but several semesters ago, I banished the word chetwudakhwat. Well, I guess it's a verb. So people weren't allowed to say they were tired, but you can say it. But judakhwat would be like your hands got tired.
Judakhwat.
With a T. Judakhwat. TL at the end. Okay. Oh, I typed it with a Y. That's why. They're right next to each other. Wooch tuanke hasyati. So. Yeah. But there should be chopping. So like just the chut on its own. So like this is where the name for an ads comes from, is chuta. So chut would be like our chut would be they were adsing it. But once we put the ka and then the L classifier, now it becomes chopping wood. So adsing and chipping, like they say chipping, but it's really kind of adsing. Okay. Who else wants to propose a sentence in our developing narrative here?
Sagadi. He asked Sagadi for help.
Okay.
Or not.
Okay. Okay. Well, that would be if he's asking more than one of them, which is fine. If it's just one, then it would be idishe.
Kashuk, is it one beaver or multiple? What's multiple, huh? Idashi.
Ganashish.
Elias, Dasa Yausakawe Sagadi. What did the Sagadi say?
Maybe bring us some food from the feast.
and we'll help you. Adusa Ausaku, Dasa bring us some food. Tlingit Reina.
Well, Jaco, you can do Kaiji, no? You would say, Hach eight I woo. Hach eight I woo.
Yeah.
That's like how you would ask for help from.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like literally saying, send it to my mouth.
Oh.
Or send it to our mouths, I guess. And this is something.
Oh, and
cook.
for that woos, you would actually expect, because they're asking for help, not necessarily asking a question, they would say awachuch. Tsike diqani awachuch.
Okay. Gwash y dasho e jene ka e degach tu dishi tu agesigu. Ya Google document a kok gwash wooch gach tu dehin. If you want to share the document, we can help you with the typing because it's pretty heavy lifting for. But it's up to you. You're doing awesome, but you know. Gwash shakao ish kachet. Oh yeah. Oh.
Chat box, Kakwashi, yeah, link.
Oh. Oh. Yeah, taka. Isatinaka.
Khosatin.
Okay.
Yeah, ach tuayak at the achtasigui in kochanigi. Tikuzi at the ya. Nadeshi. Wesa awe. Date kag einach help. Now, no equity. Tlingit einach. Nadeshi.
Yeah,
awe. Nadeshi. Tsike dikwanich awachuch. So if you really wanted to like get it really close to what the intended English was, you could say Nadeshi help Tsike dikwanich awachuch. He it's like to ask for something. He asked for help from the beaver people, or like solicited help. And if he was really badgering them like a bunch of times, you could say Akaulichuch. But if it's just once, you would say awachuch.
Oh. Iteyachike.
Chat box kaushiki.
Yeah. Wich awa kunachawa atchsiti. Okay. Chakoniete ko always do ich awa chuch. Actually, just regular noun shug awa yek pisani wich. Ach tsigede kwanich awa chuch.
Okay. Oh, good question, Ku. Because the chut has an apostrophe, it's not going to make that consonant switch. Okay. Hachit aiwu. Hachit aiwu tsaqawe itegachtuteshi. Okay.
Just like it ain't do achcha. Katlishu kutsuchi yegu gink. Akti sekuin. Yeah. Detsushutan ye. What hachit aiwu. The dich our kutsiti. What like always buy us some lunch. Order us lunch.
Okay. Wasai te Wooch, Johan. Has anybody not contributed a sentence? Again, we're just having fun. This is not a old sacred story. We're just making it up. We're just having fun. So, and then sometimes we'll talk about it and we'll just sort of expand it a little bit. Okay. Hopefully everybody provides an idea.
How would you say they brought him food and it made him sick? Or them food. They brought them food and it made them sick.
Hastuqeito du wuwu hastuqayech. Achqoha haswasinik.
Atcha, ikshe, tuyenaqa.
You could say atcha, or you could even just say hastuqeit hasawawu, like you have it. Because if you wanted to specify atcha, you'd say atcha hastuqeit autitsiwu.
Yeah.
Actually, which it would be a good way to say it, so then you show both. You know, where awawu kawachosiwu.
Oh, gosh, yata has to hate achas our Tlingit get it high or achas our shkalneek. Ikshe.
Achasusinik. Or wait, you wouldn't have to say that. You could make it shorter. Tlingit kharij. Oh, actually, you'd have to reorder it though. Tlingit kharij has tuqait has siwu. Because you got to get the, if it's specific, you have to put a sa classifier. If you specify what they sent, has tuqait. Tlingit kharij has tuqait has siwu. Oh, you here. Eat qatashisa.
Okay. So yeah, we're having fun in the nitty gritty details, but we'll walk you through what what's going on through the translation process and what we're sort of in discussion about. So one is Tlingit verbs change all the time. They just change a lot. And some of the things when they change for us, they're like, oh, you're doing this with something, we got to change the classifier now because you're doing it with a specific thing. So when we go back to Haqait Aiwu, which is this one. So when they say Haqait Aiwu, it's to send something to our mouth, which is just, it's a command form for saying like, send me something to eat. It's not very common. You'd have to be really pretty bossy to say this. Raven said it to people. It's Haqait Aiwu. This is actually a phrase, if you change this ha to Haqait Aiwu shkalneek. That's something you say in Tlingit when you see killer whales out on the water, and then you give them tobacco. And you're saying, send us some food, grandpa, grandparents, and you give them tobacco. A long time ago, they used to give them cedar bark that they would chew on because the cedar, yellow cedar, is where the killer whale comes from. So we're making a lot of changes, but it's just, we're translating what you folks are saying in English. And so we want to just show you how we would do something like this. And we do a lot of translation work. So then we're just kind of really messing around with it and having fun. But we don't want to leave you behind. So I want to just walk you through what kinds of things we're doing. So our wutuliyéx is to make some sort of request of somebody. So like we started off with wooch, and so you would say like, they asked this question, but then it would be like, how much does a rabbit weigh, or something? It's just some sort of question that you would give an answer to. But if I'm going to request something of you, then that's a different verb. And so exercises like this, I think, are really fun when we kind of remove sometimes we think of stories as being too sacred, but I want to talk a little bit while the text is being adjusted by this anonymous platypus. Platypus. There's this project called Totem Storyboards, which is a silly name, but it's a silly thing. So I'll show you one after we take our break. We're gonna work a little bit longer, then we'll take our break. But they're just like these little visuals that tell a story. I like to use them because they're kind of silly little stories. Like these animals have a party, and you look at the thing and you just sort of create a story. And it's kind of fun because you're using the language to create a narrative, but you don't have the pressure of like, you cannot get this story wrong. And so that's why this kind of activity is really fun. So I'm glad that we're doing this. Okay. So what has happened now, and then as we sort of look at the ideas for English, we're kind of changing a few things here and there just to create just narratives that we're kind of maybe a little more familiar with, kind of. So if we go back to here, gan kashachut jiyit judekwet. So ishan khat. There's different things, like we can use these guys if we want for the, a lot of times we'll use these on recommendation from Zeosh James Crippen for quotation marks in Tlingit, because you might have like that little apostrophe and then you're going to have a quotation. You're going to see three little things in a row. It's going to look confusing. So usually we use these. Sometimes in some of our upcoming publications, we're going to add this little tiny space, not a full space, but like what we call like a hair space, just to create a little separation. We're not going to put that in there right now. And then Nadashi, oh, go ahead.
How do you type those quotes that you used?
So if you're using the Crippen keyboard, it's the Option key and then that straight up and down thing, I don't know what it's called. It's right above the, is that a backslash? I don't really know what the keys are.
I found it.
Okay. And if you push shift and option, then you get the closing one, the end one.
Okay.
Oh, there, it popped up in the chat. Sheesh. There's probably other ways to get to them. Okay. So in this case, he asks the beaver peoples for help. Okay, that's a fun story. And then here we have, we probably put this whole thing in quotes. So this is a command coming back from the beavers. Send us something to eat first. So that's what the tsa does. Only, and so there's some different ways you can use tsa, but it's usually like saying this thing happens first and then this other thing. So it kind of depends how it's being used. It usually refers to the order that things are happening. There's this phrase aqa'aweh that's used a lot in storytelling, but you can say aqa'aweh tsa. Only after that happened, then this other thing could happen. And then we will help you. And so here we sort of, we got this idea, and so we kind of talked it out. We said, Shengit at chayich, so human food, has to chait has ausawu. So the awu changed to ausawu because we're specifying something. And this is the verb you would use for sending emails, letters, anything through the mail. So they sent them over some human food. We atchach has to, I don't know if they use has shkalneek. So but this food got them sick. Okay.
And I found a specific term for the next sentence. Kayik kanik.
Oh, like kayik.
Ka yik 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 yanik. To be sick inside. Tummy trouble.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Atsuyuk yat akoa ayase de yak dachaya shat atchuk siku kunach ki Tlingit kainach yukatankawe Elizabeth Nymanch. Yeo seka ach unique.
Oh
yeah na Cajun. Well, so it's one way to say it. Akoa with the sikucha jaltakat yete. Yukatutli at Tlingit kainach kuna ant krinich.
Okay. So has to you. We have has to, so yik is like all your inside. So if you know something inside is feeling sick or in pain. So yanik is pain or sickness. And so again, we see this, so we're gonna start talking about the classifier a little bit more. So yanik is sick. Ausanik is somebody got somebody sick. So what we see is this classifier pops up right before the verb root. That's going to change for a few different things. One of them could be, we're talking about something specific now. It's going into some sort of category, it's classifying, which is why it's called a classifier. Another main reason that might switch is it's not just happening, somebody's doing it. So yanik, ausanik. Sick, somebody got them sick. Yak'e, it's good. Yishke, you have improved it. You made it better. You made it good.
Hachke.
Dasa?
Hachake. Yilike. Yuchat yaisika yesu.
Yeah, well.
Just ikhlishu qua. Ikhus yukhayishkin.
What's that Johan? What's gonna happen next? There's the grandparent character that they could come in and help out. I don't know.
Shkalneek zacht. Zachtinigol.
Oh, yeah.
Awaqat iskut tsu. Kartutli dal. Tlingit at khagi. Tlilhas tu ushke. Chaqat iskut. Hawasawas tu is osinig.
Itu agasaku kaishahiti dasa awe yuhe an kakwa shahit too yag. Oh, he's a yadak. Okay. Oh, shukuk. Oh, okay. He's like, hey. Okay. Anybody want to take a stab at translating this sentence here? Way
I'll give it a shot then. The Tlingit food, it isn't good for you. It isn't good for them. Click hastu. Yeah, it isn't good for them.
And this is another one. So when we see, so like yak a has a negative version, which is klech ukeh, but then it has an opposite version, which is klech ushkeh. So you could even say human food is harmful to them. Human food, and so it's even like a step beyond. Like you could say, like for example, for a dog, if you gave a dog human food, you could probably say, it's not good for them. But if you fed a beaver like a hamburger or something, like it would really get sick. So we couldn't even just say like it's bad for them, or it's harmful to, there's a bunch of different ways. And so I like how Bessie Cooley, whenever we do work with her, when we talk about translating, she usually says, well, we're interpreting. She prefers to say interpreting to translating, because there's so many different avenues you could sort of take. And as you folks learn more and more of the language, you're going to become your own, you're going to become interpreters. You're going to be in this zone in between Tlingit and English a lot. Okay, what about the next one?
The boy's grandparent knew about medicine. and she cooked devil's club water or devil's club tea for their mouths for them.
I'm just gonna say it's acht. Yeah. And there's different ways, like you could say hastu jiyis, like to give to them. And you could also say hastu ace, which is jiyis for their possession. So G plus yis gets you jiyis. Plus yis gets you ace. So ace is like for somebody to eat or drink. Pilgrim's Claw. Okay, goodness cheesh. Anybody not suggest a sentence yet? This is our story. We could just make it whatever we want. We're just having fun.
I don't know how you would say poured it, but achta poured it.
Oh, dasa a cook. So a kausacha is usually to pour. It's like you could pour something out, and you could pour something into things. You could just pour things in general.
Yeah, gusu hunch ade kwanye khatnegu. Teslat ukhatin kaya ach computery ukhke uati.
Ha.
You eat khadishi takhti wati qa.
You go one. So let's step away from that for a second. And so as we get some ideas of things we want to say, like sometimes it's helpful just take a walk through the verb dictionary. So if we say, oh yeah, they poured it out, or they poured it into a cup, or they, and so what we'll do is we'll go down and we'll look for pour, and then we'll go from there, because sometimes we know how to say things, and so we'll just say it, but then sometimes it's good to just take a walk through and see. This was one, pouring and spilling was one we wanted to use quite a bit at the language nest. And so we have pour, to pour something out. And so then we see some examples. As she was pouring it, he came in. Ya anascheni neil uwagut. He hasn't poured the coffee yet. Klesh coffee yach akus chaych. Pour some water in it. Akayach aksacha hin. Pour me some water. Hin achjit yasacha. So this shows us kind of a starting point, and then hold on. We can. So from here, so using the verb dictionary, it shows us like some of these verbs and gives us some examples, but it doesn't necessarily show us some of the ways, like if we wanted to say she poured it into a cup or something like that. It doesn't really show us how to do that yet, and so it gives us these samples, and so this is what we'd call it's in the process of happening right now. This one is hasn't happened yet. This one is do it, and this one is also do it. So we get two commands. We get this is a pretty complicated form, and then we get a happening right now. Let me check the chat. Okay. So now we'll take a look, but that, oh, sorry, let me show you one more thing. But what we can do from here is we can say, well, here's the root, ha. So let me go to Carrie's verb database and see if I can find it there, and then that'll help me to put it together. Oops, where'd that go? So here, oops, I was gambling. So we go down and then we see pour, dump. So to pour it out, to pour it into, to pour it, to dump it. So we'll check out this one. Maybe this one, I like this one. So here we have ade akausecha. So this shows us how to use so the perfective is what we're going to use a lot in stories. And for now, a lot of what you're probably ready to do is to go find that verb and then to go look it up in here, and then to plug it in somewhere. And so what this shows you is this capital P, I would write that as a capital N, just say noun. So you could say like gucha, or if you're from Yakutat, you can say chashka, and then kade, right? Kausacha. Or
there's
okay.
Oh, I was just going to say there's a couple of other kind of cool things you can do too. Like you could say hastuqait hasakausicha, like, or hasakausicha, like they poured some for them.
Yeah.
Or you can also say like chashkaqait or kukaqait. It's like into the confines of the cup or something, or like the embrace of the cup.
Okay. So yeah, for Tlingit, if she's gonna pour it, we just need to know into what or where, and then we could put the rest together. Maybe she pours it into tiny cups for each of the little beavers. I don't know.
Kukwa kisani qaitaya khagausicha hastuqais.
Equity. Where did that thing go? Wakshe, anonymous leopard. Clutch platypus.
Huh. Hey, atchat kaudiya, I guess.
Chakut atcheseti.
Yeah, wakhat dati. Chel khosiku anakhsawit lakhiya akhat kanich.
Okay, so she poured it in little, I'll do the
something bad gonna happen now, maybe? Like, isn't that normal?
maybe, yeah. Like if it was following some sort of Tlingit, like, yeah, are the beavers gonna strike back? Or maybe it's just a peaceful thing. Like maybe someone else goes and gets them like some yummy sticks or something, just to really like appease the beavers, just be like, so maybe they can make a peace offering. So it doesn't have to go like all okay. But a lot of Tlingit stories do, right?
Like the beaver accused the boy of being a witch.
Okay, yeah, okay. So we're gonna start the war. Okay. How would we translate that part?
Master of medicine. I saw that in the dictionary just now for witch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, witch. Said the Tlingit decline.
Or to him.
To the young boy.
Oh, okay. Sheesh. Yeah, and so like we got to touch on this concept of witch for a second, because this is one where I think the English it works, but we just got to touch on that concept a little bit, because that's such a it's got so many different sort of interpretations as far as English goes. But basically, the icht and the naqt are kind of on opposite ends of a spectrum of using spiritual power. So the icht uses spiritual power to heal people, but sometimes to fight with other. Sometimes people are fighting, and the icht is involved, and so it's not always like it's much more nuanced than just like good and bad, right? But naqt is usually someone who uses that spiritual power to harm people. And so the naqt is the one you see that's often being tied up, and they would torture them, is what they would say. And there's lots of stories about these folks. But basically, if you suspected that someone was, like if everybody's getting sick all the time, like someone could be doing something to someone. So like if they got a little piece of your hair or some part of your clothing or something, they could really do some harm to you. And we called them naqt, which does mean master of medicine. And so this term tz'atih is one really worth also continuing to examine. It could mean like a boss or a master of something, but when we see different words, so when it gets put in front of nak, which is medicine, then you get like someone practicing witchcraft. Usually we call it hihwa, is what it's called, like causing harm to people with some sort of medicine. And then now tz'ateh would literally be like the master of alcohol, but it means an alcoholic. What are some other tz'ateh ones that are out there? Yisakuka. Oh, esqeu tz'ateh, a saner, because sometimes it means, as far as like how the word works, it's like they have mastered this particular thing, but that's not always a good thing, right? So I guess an alcohol, like they have kind of mastered the alcohol. Wutuliyéx is a carpenter. So they have mastered making things.
Chaktu an qananayu tsatiat tsatiat wa achinach.
So someone who was a widow could be called someone who is masterless, which is interesting. Like
tsatiat yeo kha. Eslachtuaj go kaltitsikwaat. Tsatiat. Wehestu ati.
Oh yeah.
Atestu kutetskesan ichatasatsu.
Just like an object, right?
Yeah, just anything. It has to yi.
So like if this was the pencil I always wrote with, then if something or somebody, let's just make it somebody else, and then they passed away, it could just become this masterless object. And that could refer to atu or something when the clan needs to figure out who it's going to go to. Ate is a master of the land, and that's the word for like a mayor. Donats ate could be a rich person. Hits ate, that's the word for like someone who's the speaker of a particular house. So they've been elected, I guess, or selected as the clan leader, but they speak on behalf of a house. Katiqat ate, the master of the keys. That's could be like a warden or a jailer. I guess that would be in Ghostbusters, right? The key master. Qat ate, a boss, like a boss of people.
How would you say gatekeeper?
Oh yeah, probably qahat ate. Qahat ate akawa. Katiqat ate khatsati. And then sometimes, like, you know, raising kids, when my kids get really bossy, I'll say, you're not my boss. Oh, yeah. So there is, let's see. Let me get to the widow part. That one's, so at would be like there's no one who owns that object anymore. And the atisha, that's the term that used to be used for a widow. But yeah, there's a few terms that are probably, I would say they're a little sensitive now. And so these are things that should be talked about in terms of how they work in the language and how they should work going forward. And these are things I think people who are in the language community should be talking about. And languages change, and cultures change, and societies change. So we were dealing with a story we were working on where we're just looking at the Tlingit version of it and then translating it back to English. And it's there's a term, kahanti or kuhanti, which is an orphan. And so something to know about Tlingit culture, from what I've been told, is people whose parents died when they were very young had a really hard life. They really did. From the things that I have heard and been told, Tlingit people were not very kind to people who were orphans. And so these are things worth examining, because I know sometimes people say you can't change the culture, but then sometimes I'll say, well, every culture changes and every language changes, and that's a delicate thing. And those are things worth having a dialogue about. And it's going to be sometimes full of tension, and there's going to be power dynamics involved, and people are going to get criticized for talking about stuff or suggesting that some things change. But Tlinkits used to have slaves, and we don't do that anymore. We used to sacrifice people, and we don't do that anymore. And you know, there's certain things about like who people should marry and stuff, and but these are things that should be talked about. And ate shawat would mean, I don't know, how would you interpret that? At would be a masterless object.
Tisha tuchuchunau. Just widow or witle. Yet to hear to yari tatite. Well, and yeah. Gusha.
Yeah, what?
Tika. That's what got to leer a gushe. Gushe added to sagun ye. I never heard it.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is a term for usually a female whose husband has passed away. And I don't think that it says like the husband was her boss or master. I don't think, but then I don't know what the equivalent term would be for a male. That's what Shakawish just said. We don't know the term for what a male who just lost their wife. And so these are, again, things that are worth looking at. There was another one. So the verb for two people to marry is awasha. So you can say Wooch has awasha. But some of the feedback that I've received is that as we did translate stories, we would say Hich awasha yisha, what? The woman who married a frog. But then one elder says, well, you can't say that because the man marries the woman doesn't marry the man. And that might be how the language worked. But nowadays we have just things change, right? Just like in English, right? English there's a bunch of things in English that are going through shifts as I think a lot of different cultures, sometimes there's not a lot of equality when it comes to gender. There's also alternatives to just straight male female binaries, and so we have women who are marrying women and men marrying men, and that's great. And so sometimes the languages need to adjust, and you're going to get some pushback, and every language community is going to have to figure this out, whether it's English, Tlingits, or whatever. And so those are some things worth talking about and thinking about. And I'm not going to tell people how it should be, but when I teach my kids, I tend to teach them using a lot of equality and just sort of, and as I talk with some of my colleagues and other learners and teachers, I say, well, maybe those are things that need to change. And maybe we'll say, oh yeah, that's how it used to be, but that's not how it's going to be now. But you know, that's not up to me at all. But I'll certainly have my ideas and contributions, which usually lend towards talking about equity and equality. And so there are some terms that we're going to encounter that are worth talking about and thinking about, and then figuring out what we're going to do with it going forward. And so we were saying, it's a sensitive thing, because I've been scolded before.
Yeah, you know, it seems like one of the things that I hear more than anything still to this day is when you hook up with somebody from the same moiety. I don't know if you hear that anywhere else, but I still hear it around, and up in Canada I'll hear it. And I've been in one of those relationships myself, but that's something that I hear more than, maybe because of my situation, but I hear that even before that more than I do about some of the other ones that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean that is one. And then you know, children whose parents are the same moiety is something worth discussing. And again, these are things that at one point, you know, like I think about some of the things and like if we switch to a different cultural group, if you look at Haida peoples, and so Haida at one point, there's probably 20,000 Haida people. And then you have contact, and then within probably 100 or 200 years, the population goes down to maybe about 500 worldwide. And now the population rebuilds itself. So sometimes just by that logic, you have to sort of shift a little bit. And then as a culture sort of continues to go along, these are some things that are related to the language, right? Because the language reveals this whole other thought world. And then sometimes we have to sort of examine some of this stuff and say, you know, I think I've been in situations too where people say like, well, I'm a clan leader, and when I'm in the room, women aren't supposed to talk. And I'm just like, well, what's that gonna do for us? You know, but these are things where there's gonna be a lot of different opinions that come in. But I will say, as far as the language movement altogether, generally what I see is I'll see more females who are coming to learn the language than males. And I think about that and I'm like, well, how do we get more of the males to come? And we just want to have everybody here. And so I'm not trying to say that I think it's great. This is very common with a lot of indigenous language revitalization, as you see women leading the movement, and that's fabulous. But then what I see is I think it's easier for males to become speakers than females. And then I'm thinking, well, what are we doing here? Is this because of those things where they say women aren't supposed to talk? And when they sort of revitalized other languages, like Hebrew, as they were trying to bring Hebrew back to a language that's of common use, they had a similar thing where it's like, oh, the men are supposed to speak and the women aren't, but we want the language to be in the house. And so, and then there was a whole bunch of stuff, and it was a different era as well. So these are things that need to be talked about. And then sometimes, as we're just doing a fun story and translating stuff, we're gonna sometimes run into some of this stuff. Okay, we never had our break, so we're not gonna get one. But sorry. You got, there's no class on Thursday, so there's your break. But we only got 2 classes left, so I want to make sure that we're doing stuff that's productive as far as being language learners. And this activity was really fun because we're just sort of thinking about how do we go from things we think about in English to how we might say those things in Tlingit. Any other thoughts or questions, ideas? To finish our story, we're working on a little bit more. We got pulled into I think these are things we do have to talk about though sometimes.
The boy pulled off the mask and he was actually Kushta.
This is a Scooby-Doo ending.
Yeah.
Nice plot twist.
Is that we're gonna do that? Is that what you guys want to do? The people arrive. Oh yeah, there was this party going on too. Okay. Oops, number 8. Okay, which Kate the way do yat cheosene akau tin kushdacht atiho. I guess I gotta say I gotta put this in there or else we're not gonna know who it is. So Kate is but it's interesting because it's like a dancing mask. So like I guess if we're gonna really have a Scooby-Doo moment, we gotta figure that. But maybe he's just wearing like this, we got this bit of a supernatural story going, so that's totally fine. Do yatchiausene, there's probably other ways to say that, but yadach is from his face, so that could become yatch. Ye ausene is just a verb to do something or to move something or multiple things. We yadak, the boy, aqawuduzatin, and then people saw kushtach satihu, he was a kushta. Okay. Ooh, okay.
Are they going to eat the beavers at the feast? I feel like that's where this is going. Poisoned them and then ate them.
All the people turned into kushtas.
The grandparent just made the medicine. I want some resolution and some kind of life lesson. But that's just me, because that's how usually there's some they're coming, but maybe we just keep diving deep into the depths of the pit of despair. Ooh. Okay.
So what I did there is I made it, well, first the verb for taking something off of your face is like a mask, yat ditan. And then they suddenly realized about him. They suddenly realized that he was a landdaughter.
So this audatan, it's because it's an empty container is kind of how it's seen. And so that it's really cool because the mask comes off and then it's just this sort of thing that moves. Okay. Well, we're gonna have to have a quick end. So I guess, yeah, maybe I don't know what happens. So people are coming from all over to the Ku'ik. And what's going to happen? Eating the beavers? Is that what we're going to do here?
The boy wakes up and it was all a dream.
Oh, there we go. That's a cheating ending, but we'll just take it. Oh, yeah.
Huh.
It's the Dallas ending.
Psych, roll credits. Oh, okay. Ooh, okay. Oh, what is it when you have wait, wait, nightmare.
Could K awajun. Kawatake awe. Do tayi dayakukat. Or just tayi dayakukat. Do tayi dayakukat awe. His nightmare.
Ooh. Tayi dayakukat. Okay. Oops. Okay. There, roll credits. Fun stuff, folks. Ganchi shoyi chni. Tachonach game. Adehai lituetsu. Shakao ish. Chish. What? Ellaqait laya. Ellaqait liikachicha. Gwalltelli un og aya hastuchut aya qachia di helwasaka kwatiqoa. Yewa ach tuasaku we jatachtihina we klingitati jagachtune Wooch in. Aqawe uhansu gachtulsa tak we skun wutulsa ye awa ach tuya ke yuhan. Wooch chuche hayati yak. That's it, folks. So we got 2 more classes. So we'll think about what we want to do for those 2 classes. We were working on the Tag story, a few other things. You got a letter to write. That's your final assignment for our class. So you're going to write a letter to somebody. We're going to get together, not next. So we got next week as our last 2 classes. The Tuesday after that, we will get together for an unrecorded class where we will share our letters with each other and just have a bit of a wrap up And then we'll move into winter break, but I'm going to share some ideas on how to stay active with the language while you're on your break, and appreciate everybody's work. Maybe you're going to eat some turkey meat, whatever you do, have fun. I know some of us like to be around family this time of year, but we might not be able to. So hang in there. I have a feeling next year will be better, but have a good, restful weekend, and we'll see you folks next week on Tuesday. Good cheesh.
Cheese.
Okay.
Cheese.
Good cheese.